All right, so let's talk about copywriting. All right, copywriting. Grace, what do you have to say about copywriting?
Well, part of copywriting, of course, would be the SEO. You know, if you're doing web copywriting of any kind. I mean, if you're writing an article for a print magazine, I mean, that's a totally different ballgame. But anything that is going to be on the web, you would want SEO to be involved. I guess one thing that I've really had to learn that I have really learned a lot since working for Helps To and blogging for other people instead of just for myself. I've been blogging for myself for 5 years, which is fine. But blogging for other people, basically being a ghostwriter, is that you need to learn how to write in someone else's voice. And that is, I don't know, that is, honestly, I don't know how to teach that. And with all the research that I do reading blogs about how to, what is voice? This elusive thing that every writer wants to get is the perfect voice. Whether it's for fiction or nonfiction writing, what is your voice? It's this ethereal thing that all writers are after. And nobody seems to know how to teach it because you can't really teach it. You really have to learn it by immersing yourself in that voice. And if you are immersed in it enough, then it can flow back out of you. Like if you fill a glass full of water, and if you get enough water in there, then it will finally start to overflow. So that's really kind of the best analogy, and that sounds sort of out there and not very helpful probably, but
it's definitely something to be aware of.
Yeah. So if you're working for a client and they already have a website, maybe they've even done some blogging, or they have, they have some articles that have been published on other blogs or websites or something, and you can actually read their writing style.
Yeah.
And then they hire you to write a blog once a month for them because they don't have time to do it, but they already have content they've written. That's the easiest way to be able to adopt someone's voice, is if you can actually read something that they have written that's going to be similar to what you're writing. And then you can kind of copy it. It's concrete things like, do they lose long sentences? Do they use short sentences? Do they love their semicolons and dashes and, they have 5 semicolons in a sentence and it's, this long? Or do they kind of write in bullet points? Do they have really short paragraphs, long paragraphs? Is it an informal, chatty kind of voice?
Or very formal?
It very, very formal and kind of like reading a dry textbook? So that's the best way to do it, is if they have already written something, then you can kind of adopt their voice. Instead of being if you're starting from scratch, that might make it easier, it might make it harder. Make it harder because you've got nothing to work with, but on the other hand, it might make it easier because if you've been hired to write all the content on their website, let's say you're starting from scratch, somebody's like, I have this business and I need to have a digital presence and I have nothing but my awesome product. How do I get online? So you're designing everything from scratch yourself. That might be harder, or it might be easier because you can kind of start from scratch and you can write up the content for their website and say, does this sound like you? Do you like the sound of this? Does this sound like the way you would want people to relate to you? Does this sound like it's reaching the people you want to reach? Does it sound appealing to your target audience? That kind of thing. And you can kind of go back and forth and kind of figure out what they want. It's really kind of something you just kind of learn the more you do it.
Yeah.
Like for the Helps To blogs, it's been easier now that I basically blog about the videos that Gabby puts up. So I just kind of like sort of do a pseudo transcript of the video in the blog post. So that makes it easier. But I've written quite a few blogs for several years that did not link to a video that Gabby had already made. It was just, hey, we need to blog about something for Helps To. And I just, we just came up with a topic and I wrote it. Well, they all have Gabby's name on them, but I have written 80% of the blogs on there.
We're telling all the world that I do not write anything. Sorry, everyone.
Recording this, you can get that part out. Anyway, but, okay, maybe not 80%, but.
No, I would say about 80, 75%, 80%, yeah. I mean, I've written some blogs. I started off the writer, and when Grace came, I said, hallelujah, I am out.
Nice.
So a lot of the older ones Gabby did, but, I mean, the past couple of years, definitely, I've written, all of them. which is fine. But, if you read a number of those blogs, I try to be a little bit more informal, use a few more exclamation marks, not too many because you never want to overdo exclamation marks, but,
More chatty. We're chatty.
Hey
we're
guys,
chatty
here we are with an awesome topic this week, trying to cater to a slightly younger audience, people who are creative, kind of going here and there, interested in marketing, interested in current trends. They want a little bit of slang. They want informal language. We don't need a lot of hitherto-fors and things like that. Yeah. So we don't have any of that in the blog. That's really the biggest thing outside of the SEO bit for copywriting is just getting the voice of the client. If you're doing copywriting for a client, is getting their voice, or like I said, if you're building something completely from scratch, helping them find their voice that they would have, but you're the one actually doing the writing. So
I think that's good.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I personally would just add to the voice part. One thing I had to learn, well, first of all, I got some firsthand experience of not finding someone's voice very well. They called me on it. They were like, I was doing social media, because copywriting is not just blogs. It's on social media. You use copy for everything, and it should change on every platform you use. It should be different. Blogs are longer. Facebook is more like for people who are millennial age to 60, Instagram is for the millennial age to high school, high schoolers are actually starting to not like Instagram. Snapchat is for high schoolers. They love it. They all speak differently. And so if you talk, some people can get away with talking to those people the same way, but most of us cannot. When I talk to my dog versus my brother versus my mom versus my boyfriend, it's different for all of them. It doesn't make me a different person. But my boyfriend, I'm like, hey babe, how's it going? I love you. To my dog, I'm like, come here, Smithy, Same Gabby, different people. You know what I mean? And I would never interchange the two. I'd never be to my dog, hey babe, come give me a hug. No, that's so weird, And so you need to know how to get the attention and what appeals to everybody on every different platform. And you can do research. People can just Google, what tactics and words should you use in a Facebook post? On Facebook, you have to use copy that actually provokes people to do what you want them to do. If you want them to click a link, you need to say, click here now, or click here if you want to check out this latest blog that I just read. Otherwise, they won't do anything, because Facebook is very much like a newspaper now. People just look, and if they're not prompted to do anything, they're like, don't care. And I think I would talk about the voice. I was working for this international sculptor, and he's awesome. And I posted something on Facebook where I said, hey, what do you guys think about my latest work? And he saw it, and he was like, I don't ever ask people how they like my work. I don't ask people for their approval. I know my stuff is good. And, he knows. People have told him he's internationally known. He has, galleries everywhere. So, I was like, all right. That was a step in learning his voice. And one thing I had to gather with just different clients of ours is, okay, I can go read everything they've done, but the reality, which is hard for our generation and just people in general, is you need to talk to that person or that organization constantly. With Evangel Home, we work with them. They're amazing. Jerry, the director, is phenomenal. And when I started doing their social media and writing, not too many blogs for them, but more their newsletters and stuff, I had to talk with Jerry. She is a grammar Nazi. She calls herself that, so I'm not going to get in trouble if she hears this, And she's very particular, and I love that about her. And so she made me become very particular. And she'd say, I don't like that word. And at first, I would kind of get a little nervous when I was writing things. I'm like, I don't know what she's going to say. But that is the beauty. Me and Jerry have gotten to a process where I'll send something to her maybe 4 times, and then it'll be ready to post, or the newsletter will be ready to send. But when it first started, it could easily be 12 times that I send her the newsletter back and forth. And at first, I was young when I started digital media, so I was and I still am young, but I was really a lot less patient is the way I should explain it. And so that would frustrate the heck out of me. I would be I'm sending this lady who I love and enjoy, but I'm sending this thing 12 times. Can we just get it over? Who cares? But people know. And that's the thing. People do care. And they know when it's not authentic. and it makes people not want to engage. And we have seen the success in finding that authentic voice, me finding that for Evangel Home and different organizations that we've worked with. And, you know, just like when Jerry and I have our annual Starbucks meeting and she's sitting there and she gets a message on her phone. She's like, yeah, someone just donated a couple grand to Evangel Home. And I'm like, no way. She's like, oh yeah, this happens all the time. Because we're constantly using copy. We're constantly like speaking out to people in our voice, you know, and people feel like they're a part of this Evangel Home network, you know, like they feel like they're connected. And so I think using the voice is a lot more necessary, and like it's like probably the heartbeat of all this copywriting stuff. People don't get how important it is, and they want to just throw their voice into an organization, and that could kill it. That could kill the organization, online at least, you know. So unless the organization says, hey, do whatever you want, all right, cool. Like if you're starting from scratch, it might not be important, but if you're not, it's so important. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, nobody tells you until you start writing, and people are like, "Oh, that doesn't sound right." You're like, "Oh, dang it, what's wrong?" Like, yeah.
Right.
And so to follow up kind of on that, it's like, don't be, if you're writing copy for somebody, whether it is you're starting out from scratch, you're building their website, or you know they're already established and they just kind of want to do a blog for them, whatever the case may be. You know, don't be offended if they say, I don't really like this. I mean, unless they're like mean about it, but you know, if they send it, if they send it back to you and say, hey, I don't really like this, can we change it? Or, that doesn't really sound like me, or something like that. You know, don't be offended right away. Give them a chance and go ahead and do the back and forth as many times until you're both happy with it, especially when you're first starting out with somebody. Just as you kind of learn how to communicate with each other, you learn how to communicate with your client, and your client learns how to communicate with you. And you really need to learn how to read between the lines almost, because you might write something and the client might be like, this doesn't really sound like something. I might be able to point out what it is that they don't like.
Yeah, but it's good. I mean, it's like almost being in the military. Like the more, because, you know, I say that the military because like they're so finicky about certain things. Like your hat has to be a certain way, your lapel, you know what I mean? Like everything must be within the guidelines. And so, yeah, at first when you join the military, you're pissed off all the time. But when you leave, man, you are sharp, right? And so I think that's one thing I noticed today. One of my students was showing me a PowerPoint, and I went through it, and she had a period. She had this bullet list, and there's a period on one of the bullet items, but the rest of them didn't have periods. And I said, hey, I know you probably didn't notice this, but this is not professional when I look at it. And I said, I might sound nitpicky, but people will see this, and they'll say it's not professional because you're not being consistent, and you're the one writing it. And, like, people like me and Grace, we look at that and we're like, oh, God, like, who did that, you know? And I know it sounds stupid. And when I first started copy and writing and jumping into this world of professionalism when it comes to really representing other people's brands, stuff like, you know, if you're doing a list, if every, you know, list item starts with a capital letter, that needs to be, like, consistent throughout the list. If every list item ends with a period, that must be consistent throughout the list. You know, like, if you're doing double spaces throughout, you know, some people do double space when they write, you need to make sure that is a real, like, that is for real happening throughout the whole blog or the whole post. Yeah, so I think things like that. The whole website, yeah, to be honest, the whole website.
Yeah, that's if you don't consider yourself to be an editor, or you don't think you have really great grammar and punctuation skills, if you want to get into copywriting, you need to get good at that. Because some of your clients are going to hire you to write web content, social media posts, blogs, full articles, advertisements that may be online or in print, you know, whatever it is that you offer as part of your services or something. And so if you're doing the writing, then you need to be good at self-editing and not just, you know, oh, it sounds pretty good. You need to... Or making sure, I only used 3 exclamation points instead of 6. It's like, no, you need to make sure that if you do a double space after each period, which is honestly kind of an old-fashioned way of doing things, it's not incorrect, but little things like that, the double space after a period versus the single space after a period, that can actually tell you a lot about the writer or the person's voice you're writing in, and who the target market is. Yeah. Because a lot of people over the age of 40 use the double space because a holdover from typewriters, because typewriters you would use a double space because of the way the carriage moved on the typewriter. And so a lot of people still use double space, even though they're writing on Word or they're even typing it on their phone.
They don't need to do that anymore, but they do. Yeah.
They don't need to do it. Word does have a setting where you can program it to have 2 spaces after. Some people just hit spacebar twice, whatever they might do. And again, it's not incorrect. I think if I think both the AP style and the Chicago Manual style, if you do style manuals, both approve it. It's okay. But again, you need to be consistent, and you need to be aware that if your audience is millennials, don't use double spaces after periods, because they're going to be like, they may not be able to put their finger on it. They may not look at it and go, why are there double spaces after periods? But they might just get a feel like, I don't really like this website. But
so strange,
if you're marketing towards, people in their 40s and 50s, then the single space afterwards is fine. But if you use a double space after a period, those people would be a lot more accepting of that writing style. And again, if you do that, it needs to be consistent. You can't have a blog post where it's a single space after each period, but the website, the static content has double spaces.
Yeah.
Again, these are little details that most people aren't going to notice. They won't, unless they're, a grammar Nazi themselves, they won't go, oh, the spacing's inconsistent. Or, oh, he forgot a period after, on this bullet list, the first line has a period and all the other ones don't. Most people don't notice those things, but they do notice them. Does that make sense?
I will say this. Influencers notice them.
They may not go, oh, wait, he missed a period here. But if there's a lot of little inconsistencies or mistakes like that, it just kind of comes across, it almost blurs into the voice, and you're like, this just doesn't seem super professional. They may not be able to put their finger on it. Or they may not stay on the website long enough to be able to notice, to pick out the details. They're just like, it just seems kind of thrown together.
I think that... Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Well, I was just going to say that even with, even if you're doing an Instagram post, so you're reaching millennial age people, and you use a lot of hashtags and, OMGs and LOLs and all that kind of thing, that's fine. And so you don't necessarily have to be a grammar Nazi with stuff like that, and everything is all lowercase or something. It's like, well, that's okay, but, be a little bit more conscientious on Facebook. Write a complete sentence with a capital letter at the beginning of the sentence and a period at the end of the sentence. And then throw in your, hashtag if you want to, which doesn't do much good on Facebook, but sometimes it's fun to anyway. Again, be aware of the platform you're posting on, and your target audience, and B, the majority of people who are on that platform. Mm-hmm. And even if you're driving traffic back to your website from Instagram, and so it's millennial-based stuff, and you're trying to promote, a clothing line for, college students or something like that, or people in their, single people in their late 20s or something. You're promoting this clothing line, so you want a lot of, trendy current things, and you're not really worried about big words and correct grammar all the time. The copy, like on the website itself, still needs to be correct. People don't want to go and read incorrect grammar or a website that is nothing, you don't want the copy on the website to be nothing but hashtags and things like that. Grammar does still matter, despite the fact that nobody really uses it when they text or when they put it on social media. But if you're doing it professionally for a company, and especially with copywriting, it's like, yes, grammar does matter. Make sure your period's in the right place. Make sure you use the correct form of the word, your versus your,
you are.
Don't get those two mixed up. The contraction of you are versus your as in possessive.
Well, I mean, and then it comes down to what people
really
naturally signify. Like, it's like when people speak, right? When someone has a proper English accent, they think of that person as an influencer. They're like, I want to hear what she has to say. Notice on the news, you don't really hear accents on the news. And so when you go to other countries, I'll be speaking in English, and they'll say things like, you sound like you're from the news. And I'm like, I'm not from the news, but I speak properly, because my mom used to, tan our behinds if we didn't, And then, they've done studies where they say, and I hate the fact that this is true. I really do. It really bugs me out. But it's just how we think, unfortunately. Deep down inside, Southern accents yield to people, they have this stereotype of people being dumb. I have, my whole family's from the South, you know what I mean? But Southern accents have, with studies, have shown, people think people with Southern accents are not as intelligent as people with proper ones, or someone with like a certain accent who can't pronounce something a certain way, or whatever. That whole mind perspective totally goes with copywriting as well. Like if you speak in millennial speech, OMG, ROFL, like, you know, all these things, like I'm hopping in the DMs, like that could be cool in some certain circumstances. But if you're really trying to get someone's dollar, they want to trust you. And like the reality is people don't trust millennial speech. They trust English, like proper formed English. And so, I mean, unless you're working for a Spanish company, then they trust proper Spanish. But like, you know, so just to
that's a whole other can of worms if you're doing translation or something, but we're not getting into that.
Yeah, not today. Yeah.
And then, like, test it out of a different one. So technically, I don't have to take an English class.
Hunter got out.
I was so glad.
That's awesome. I'm jealous.
Not to burst your bubble, but I was going to say that maybe you could elect to take an English class or two.